Our slide deck. So we are excited to have you all with us today. This afternoon, oh, it's already 12. So yes, this afternoon, we are here to have a webinar on the 4 iterations of the 2023 South Carolina College and Career Ready ELA standards. So the 4 iterations, that's the 4 different versions that we have posted. We're going to share about those today, and we'll get started in just a second. My name is Mandy Hawker. I'm the Elementary ELA Education Associate in the Office of Assessment and Standards. Yay, KPH, I see you are here. You are fast, sister. She was just in the other meeting and she already hopped over. So thank you, Casey. Casey dropped into the chat a couple of links for us. We have our link to our attendance. If you will please click on the attendance link and let us know who you are and that you are here. This is how we continue to provide federal accountability for our presentation today in order that we can continue to deliver these webinars across our state. So if you enjoy this digital format, we hope that you will use the attendance link to let us know you're here, and so we can share with the federal government that, hey, we have a lot of people coming to these virtual trainings, and we can continue to provide that. Very nice. And then also you have a link to your note catcher that we'll be going through today. So some housekeeping as we get started. Again, the attendance link is in the chat for you, as well as a link to your note catcher. This was also emailed on Friday. Some of you may have gotten it then. But on your note catcher, throughout our presentation today, you'll see these blue circles in the corner of your slide deck. And that corresponds to a box on your note catcher with the same number. And that number tells us what box we're responding to. So just so you can kind of follow along as we go through today. Now, we want to know who you are as you're getting settled and getting started today, 3 minutes in. So first, we want you to tell us your name, the district or location that you support in South Carolina, and then finally, your favorite holiday movie. What do you like to watch in these cozy winter times together? What is something that's on your watch list or your TV that you're currently watching? Well, my name is Mandy Hawker. I support the state of South Carolina, particularly grades kindergarten through 5, with the ELA standards, revision and implementation. And my favorite holiday movie to watch about now is the love story of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, right? That's my favorite thing that I'm currently watching. Y'all drop in the chat about y'all. Oh, very nice. Very nice. I see some Thornwell friends right down the road from me. I'm here in Lawrence, South Carolina. So many Home Alones. Y'all have never seen a whole movie. So y'all are making me feel like I need to. Love Actually, 10 out of 10. I agree. Oh, Elf. Yes, Brenna. Oh, very good. I love this. I love seeing your suggestions. This is also good for me when I take a couple of days off at the end of the year. It'll give me something to do with my time. So thank you. Very good. Very good. Thank y'all. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So we want to let you know who we are. I've already introduced myself to you, but I want to introduce my team as well. And we'll start with Casey Prince Harvey.
Good morning. Well, I guess I should say good afternoon. It's 12:05. Good afternoon. My name is Casey Prince Harvey. I'm Education Associate for Humanities and ELA Support on the standard side of the Office of Assessment and Standards, and I'm very excited to be here with you today.
Wonderful. Next, we'll talk to Brenna.
Sorry, I was trying to comment on somebody's Christmas story. I love it. My name is Brenna McCormick, and I am the Secondary ELA Education Associate for the Office of Assessment and Standards on the standards side. And we are so glad to be here with you all this afternoon.
None of us realize that it's afternoon, y'all. That's the kind of morning it is. Willy Wonka. Oh my gosh. I love that, Arlene. Okay. And finally, we have our last puzzle piece here, Tabitha Hughes.
Hey guys, as Mandy said, I'm Tabitha, and I am the middle level education associate on the standards side of the Office of Assessment and Standards. Really happy to be here this afternoon with you guys. And I love all the Christmas things. It doesn't matter. I love them all. But if I had to choose, probably two of my favorites that I have to watch without fail every year. The Grinch, I prefer the Jim Carrey version and the classic cartoon, and then A Christmas Carol. And I don't care if it's the Muppets or what, I love it because I just love that story of how they transform. But yeah, but anything Christmas, I'm your gal.
Awesome. Can y'all all tell that we are very excited about the December holidays? Yes, we are. Okay, well, let's get digging into our work today. Basically, though, Tabitha, Brenna, Casey, and myself are here to support you all. That is our role. We are your partners in reading, interpreting, and implementing the ELA standards, but then also we want to support you with reading and understanding all of the millions of documents that you find on the SCDE ELA page. There are several documents on the ELA standards page, but then there's a ton more when you look at the instructional resources page as well. So that's our role in helping you read, interpret, and understand those documents. And we're going to dig into 4 documents today. So our purpose today is to review the 4 iterations of the 2023 South Carolina College and Career Ready ELA standards. We're going to explore the purpose of each of those, but then also the use and how that could be used with the audiences that you already support in regard to ELA. So what is your purpose? What are you hoping to gain from this hour together today? What do you want to develop in your skill set that we can help you support? Or did you come to this training so that you can support others? And then who do you want to support? Who are you hoping that you can support with what we learned today in our session together? I'll let you drop that in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, unmute and tell us, why are you here today on a Monday in December when you could be doing a million things? I love that, Sarah. That's right. Middle school and high school. Yes, I love that you said that. I think that was that Cameron. Yes, this session is so unlike many of our sessions because this is applicable to every grade level, every audience, right? We're supporting our English departments, but we're also supporting who else? All educators, right? Anyone that reads and writes in their classroom. They could benefit from this information. What about our ML audience? Our GT audience? Yes, the information about these iterations can support all of our stakeholders. Great, I am so glad. Oh, you attended the one in Union. Okay. Oh, don't let it be overwhelming, Gretchen. That is right. That's our goal too, to calm all the nerves. All right, so in box 1 of your note catcher, make sure you respond to what your purpose is for today, just to give us that focus for the next 51 minutes together. Well, without further ado, let's get started on those 4 iterations. Taking a look at our agenda today, we're going to be looking at 4 iterations of the ELA standards. And here you see those highlighted. The first iteration that we're going to take a look at is the grade level iteration. So iteration number 1 is going to be our grade level iteration. But before we dig in to any documents, I want us to go over just 2 pieces of information that we'll see presented in every iteration today. The first of those is the coding of the standards and indicators. Now, with our 4 content areas, ELA, math, science, and social studies, we will see, as revisions take place, a common coding system used. And that coding system will follow the code presented in the ELA standards. So we're the first to kind of forge that river with the new code. And here we see first the subject code. And our subject is obviously ELA. Next, we have our grade level indicated. Now, if I see the number 6, what does that indicate? Sixth grade. Yes, obviously, right? The six indicates sixth grade. Now, one hiccup that we've run into in several trainings throughout our state, what does it mean when we have ELA dot E2? What does E2 represent? Anybody in the chat tell me?
High school English 2.
Mia! Woo! Mia for the extra point. Good job. Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad that you all know that. E2, E1, E3, and E4, those represent English courses at the secondary level, English 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've gotten several people that said, oh, does that mean like English language learners grade 2? So just so we know, E1 through E4 represents those high school courses. And then we have our strand code. Here at the bottom of this page, you also see the code for the strands. F represents foundations of literacy. AOR represents applications of reading. R represents research. And C represents written and oral communication. And again, that is in the strand section of the coding. Then we have our standard and our indicator. Now, in addition to the coding, we have also included color coding throughout our iterations. You'll see this in each of the 4 iterations of the standards, as well as in several of the support documents located on the instructional resources page. This color coding is represented by purple for foundations of literacy, green for applications of reading, blue for research, and red for written and oral communications. The majority of the time, these colors are represented in a band across the page that gives you that visual representation. However, it's also represented by the title of the strand as well, because we don't rely on just color alone. All right, so let's look at iteration 1, the grade level iteration. We see this in the bulk section of our 2023 standards document. And at the top, we see the strand name. Then we see that band of color. This is green, so it indicates applications of reading. After the band of color, we see the bolded standard. Now, the standard is the end of learning expectation. So that means at the end of all of education, what are they expected to know for AOR 1? Underneath the standard, we see the indicators that correspond to that standard. For ELA AOR 1, we have 2 indicators that correspond. And then in a gray box underneath the indicators, we see our indicator insight. Now, here we have some clarification on indicator insights. For AOR 1, we see indicator insights listed. For AOR 2, we see an indicator insight box that says none. Let's get a little information about indicator insights. Read this statement. In the chat, respond with anything from this statement about indicator insights that resonates with you. Not clarification for assessment. I love that one. Not to confine. Oh, I love that. A starting point. Excellent. Excellent. I love seeing that feedback in there. It helps us to know in a quick glance. Yes. Builds upon. Starting point. I love that. Very, very nice. So you won't have to guess, Jenny. Oh, isn't that comforting? We're not just a shot in the dark trying to figure it out. Yes, awesome job. Okay, so let's look at some examples of indicator insights. Here for ELA 6, AOR 1.1, we see an indicator insight that gives us a definition of a term used in the indicator. So in AOR 1.1 for sixth grade, it says, analyze how specific events and descriptive details develop the plot. Well, what are descriptive details? That is explained in the indicator insight. It's defined for us and outlined. So we're not guessing, right? Yes, we know what those descriptive details are. The indicator insight for AOR 1.2 for sixth grade gives us some insight into what students did in previous grades that contribute to their expectation for sixth grade. So we're looking back and said in grade 5, students analyzed blah, 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 blah. That gives us insight into what students were exposed to before in order for us in sixth grade to understand the indicator a little bit more. Now, if we look down here to the ELA 6 AOR 3.1 indicator insight, this gives us a forward glance into how perspective leads to irony in English 1. Why would it be important for a sixth grade teacher to know that about English 1? Drop in the chat why a sixth grade teacher might need to know that. Why would a sixth grade teacher need to know that perspective leads to irony in English 1? I love it, Bianca. That's right, Sarah, Christine, I can introduce them, right? I can use language that will prepare my students for what is to come. And understanding the relevance of perspective. If we have new to the profession or even just new teachers, how do we give them that understanding that this is where irony comes from? It comes from understanding the relevance of perspective. Can I plant seeds that will develop later into irony for them in English 1? Absolutely. Very good. Oh, I love seeing your responses. Thank you so much. Now, here's a box that we see often throughout that grade level iteration, the grade level iteration document. We see an indicator inside box that says none. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that indicator is not important and didn't need an insight? No. So why isn't there an indicator insight for every indicator? Well, when the ELA standards writing team developed indicator insights, they only included insights for indicators that could be better understood with reference to maybe a support document or a definition for terms within that indicator or some kind of connection to later or prior language use. So they're not used for every indicator. All right, so looking at the grade level iteration, again, here's what it looks like. You have your strand, your color code, your standard, your indicators, and your indicator insights. What we're going to do now is we're going to do a little CSI investigation, and we're going to look at the content, support, and ideas with each of our iterations. So let's take a look at this first iteration, just the grade level iteration. Casey Prince Harvey has dropped the link into the chat to access the grade level iteration. This starts with your grade level entering statement and then your grade level standards and indicators. And we have kindergarten all the way through English 4 in this one document. So I want you to look through and I want you to jot down on your note catcher in box 2 what content is presented here. It's very specific, not just standards and indicators. What else is in there? Then I want you to look at support. How does this document support the shift to the new standards? Then I want you to consider, what ideas do you have for using this document in instructional planning? Is this the document you use with a grade level, an individual teacher, a coaching session? How could this document be used? I'm going to give you 3 minutes, rapid fire, to CSI, the grade level iteration document. Then we'll start back on our next part. All right. Talk to me, friends. Let's look. What is the content of the grade level iteration? Drop it in the chat, unmute and tell me what was the content in that grade level iteration. The entering statement, yes, the grade level entering statement. Very good. And then obviously the standards and indicators, right? You're probably like, Mandy, does the standards and indicators and indicator insights. Very good. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Gretchen. Yes, we have our standards only for the grade level being explained, the indicator insights, and those grade level entering statements. And it's everything a student should be able to do K through 12. Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Mia. Now for support, this could support grade level specific work, right? So if you're working with 7th grade teachers, then this is the document you'd want to pull, right? The grade level iterations, especially because of those grade level entering statements. Those are essential. A lot of times they offer text types or writing modes in those beginning entering statements that can really support instruction around the standards and indicators for that grade level. As far as ideas for implementation, you use at grade level, you can also use it for unit planning or in some PLC planning. Now, if you're looking for where to find this document, this can be accessed in the standards document on the SCDE ELA standards page. Additionally, we've linked it on your note catcher today, and Casey has dropped it into the chat for you. So just if you're wondering, where do I access this information? All right, now let's move to our vertical articulations. Now, oftentimes when we're in the field in South Carolina, we hear that the vertical articulations are everyone's favorite. Has anybody ever worked with those before? Raise your hand or drop it in the chat. Vertical articulations. Very good. Oh, yes, I see lots of you have. So the vertical articulations iteration is found in appendices A and B of our ELA standards document. Lots of celebration for this, yes. And this is where we see a snapshot of how a standard progresses English 4 to kindergarten. We have that downward progression from English 4 to kindergarten. And we use the example here of 5.3 because it fits all on one page. How exciting, right? Now, in our vertical articulations, not all of our articulations fit on one page, but 5.3 does. So we thought it was a good representation to share with you. We see that English 4 to kindergarten progression. Across the top, though, we see the statement of the standard. And then we see the strand. We also see the code for the indicator on the left side, and then the language of the indicator on the right. Now, throughout the vertical articulations, you'll see the bolding of terms or phrases. This bolding is used because this is where new content is first introduced. So here we see in 5th grade, the word argument is in bold. That's because that's the first use of argument in AOR 5.3. It's important for us to recognize and see. Let's take a closer look. Here we see the bolding of validity of claims. That's because in English 2, this is the first use of the phrase validity of claims being used in AOR 5.3. And then let's take a closer look at 5.3, 7th grade through kindergarten. We see the use of lots of bolded words on all of this new content being introduced. And everyone's favorite, right? ELA 6, AOR 5.3, the new content of ethos, pathos, and logos. Who loves that in 6th grade? Yes, and we have some great resources with that rhetoric support document that support that shift to 6th grade. So If you have some questions about that, my middle school friends, we have some resources to support you in that work. But let's take a look using CSI with our vertical articulations. So again, let's look at the content. What is actually presented in this document? And then also I want you to pause and think, what's not presented in the vertical articulations? What are the vertical articulations missing maybe? Or what do we just not see presented there? For support, how does this document support the shift to the new standards? And then for ideas, how could you use this in your instructional planning? Or how could you support the audience that you serve in using this in instructional planning? This corresponds to box 3 on your note catcher. Go ahead and answer that if you can. I'll give you about 3 minutes. Take a look at that vertical articulations. I love someone said every day. Love that you're using it every day. All right. Tell me, what is the content presented in the vertical articulations? What do we see? Thank you, Natalie. Yes, the progression of the content with the bolded vocabulary. You're exactly right. It's that standards and all indicators. Oh, and with support, we see the rigor, that it's sequential, and how the cognitive complexity progresses. I love being able to see that in the vertical articulations. Very helpful to teachers. I think so too, seeing that vertical progression, how students progress in the indicator expectation. Using this, we could use this at grade levels or in vertical teams. Very good, very good. Now, anybody for 3 bonus points, which contribute to nothing, right? But for 3 bonus points, what is missing from the vertical articulations document? Anybody see something that, I wonder where that part is. I wish it was here. Any ideas? All right, we'll see if anybody, okay. Ah, I see a couple of guesses. Very good, very good. Okay, we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, to access the vertical articulations document, we access that in appendices A for Foundations of Literacy and B for the Applications of Reading, Research, and Communication strands. So if you're wondering where to find the vertical articulations, oftentimes when we're in the field, they're like, I just want to know, where do I find that document? Here it is in appendices A and B of your standards document. Now, some of you were able to notice what was missing from iteration 2. As we've been out and about in South Carolina, one thing that we heard requested very early on in January when the standards were first approved was the request for a document that had the vertical articulations that included the indicator insights. Now, at the beginning of our time together, we talked about how essential those indicator insights are for providing clarity on terms within our standards document, but also giving us a look backwards or forwards in articulation to know where maybe a student learned something previously that could impact this indicator, or how this indicator is progressing in later grades. So the ELA standards team developed the vertical articulations document to include the indicator insights in a standalone document. And that's what you see here. So in this iteration, we have our strand title up at the top, along with that colored band. So what strand does that correspond to? Communications. Then we see our standard statement following right below that colored band. Then we see a 3-column box. This 3-column table or box and then we have the indicator language in column 2, but then in column 3, we see the indicator insight that corresponds to that indicator when necessary. So sometimes there may not be an indicator insight, right? And so then in that case, the box would say none. Yes, exactly, right? But we did want to include indicator insights when they were applicable because they're very important to our standards document. All right, so thinking about the content that's presented in this document, how is this different than the vertical articulations or the grade level iteration? Write that down in box number 4, the content of this document. Then I also saw someone post in the chat a minute ago that there still may be something missing. What about overarching expectations? That gives us something to think about. All right, what about support? How does this document support the shift to the new standards? That may be similar to how the vertical articulations support, but there may be a little more information here. And then ideas. What ideas do you have for this document in instructional planning? I'll only give you just 2 minutes to fill that out on your note catcher or respond in the chat. Tell us your feedback on the vertical articulations with indicator insight. Okay, just to give my voice a rest for a minute. I'm sure you're 37 minutes into hearing me talk. Let's let someone else talk. How does this document support the shift to the new standards, or how could you see this document being used for instructional planning? I'd like for 2 people to unmute and share.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Oh, so one thing I was just thinking about as I listened to the presentation was the fact that, well, you right now in our elementary school, we're still utilizing some of the old ELA standards for grades 3 through 5 because they'll be tested on those standards.
Mhm.
But with the new standards, it's a good way for us to look at, what's coming up next. But not only that, I think these break it down a little bit easier for teachers. So it's really good for planning, moving from that standard to the indicator and helping teachers create those daily objectives, align with the success criteria for their students. They can do that with the way these are written. It's not that the old ones were horrible, but this looks a lot better and more user friendly. Just what I'm seeing right now, some of our teachers in grades K through 2 are utilizing the new one, just introducing themselves to it. And what I'm hearing in our feedback forum is that it's easier for them to not only monitor their students' progress, but think about planning for that. Because once you move from the planning stage, you want to go into implementation, but that doesn't mean anything if the teachers don't understand it so that the kids will. So it just appears to be more user-friendly, in my opinion.
Sylvia, I love that you said that about user friendly. That was the target, right? We wanted to be clear. What verb, like what's the object that you're trying to do? Well, what is the task that we want them to accomplish? Well, it's so clear because that verb is front and center on the indicator. I know what I'm doing. I'm evaluating, I'm describing, I'm locating, and P.S. the verb is defined in the glossary. Isn't that exciting? So I know what describe means. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Hey there. I noticed a lot of cross references in the insights to previous standards. So we've been doing a lot of vertical planning, and comparing, and I think that's really helpful too. Because not only do you explain the standard, well, go back to 3rd grade and they learn this, or go back to 7th
Yes.
grade. So it's helpful.
I love that, Alicia. And so often I think teachers can sometimes fall into that. Well, I'm teaching this standard, only this standard. Well, if you look at some of those indicator insights, it shows you're connecting to other standards and indicators while you're teaching one specific indicator. So yeah, that those indicator insights really can, and the vertical articulation can help you see, hey, you're doing several things at one time, multitasking, right?
Yeah, it helps with building too, especially when you break it down into teachers utilizing that for scaffolding, or if you're spiraling, the connection I think is really important.
And that vertical articulation is also so fun because when they say, hey, I never learned about irony. I don't think I've ever taught that. I've ever heard that before. Well, that English 4 teacher can be like, hey, you learned irony in English too. Here's the indicator. And I know Miss So-and-so taught you that, right? The vertical articulations give that accountability piece to us, to see where prior knowledge has been received and how we can go back and activate that. Especially for new teachers, Christine, you're exactly right. Helping those new teachers see how things are interpreted. So excellent job. Thank you for that discussion. So again, with the vertical articulations and indicator insights, the content presented in this document are the standards and indicators and those indicator insights. Very, very essential. Support, this can be used to support vertical view of how students progress in any indicator. Ideas for how to use this would be like at grade level or vertical teams, either one, a school-wide look. If you were looking for one document to print that would have the highest impact, I would say it's the vertical articulations with indicator insights. We know that copies are limited, but this is a really essential document for planning purposes. And then if you ever wonder how to access this document, or you're trying to point the audience you serve to the digital access of this, the vertical articulations with indicator insights can be accessed on the ELA instructional resources page on the SCDE website. It's also linked on your note catcher today, and Casey's dropped it in the chat several times for us. But if you ever just want to follow up on how to access that. All right, that brings us to iteration number 4, and that is our crosswalk document, the 2023 to 2015 crosswalk. The crosswalk document presents a vertical view of the 2023 ELA standards, crosswalked or aligned to what corresponds with them in the 2015 ELA standards documents. So this document is organized by the standard across the top, the 2023 standard. So in this case, it's AOR 1. And then the left-hand column gives us the 2023 indicators that align to that standard. And then the right-hand column provides us the 2015 indicator that corresponds to the 2023 indicator. Now, throughout the document, you will see on the 2015 side where there are things that are intentionally crossed out in the text. That indicates where a 2015 indicator does not have full alignment to the 2023 indicator. So maybe some of that content is no longer an expectation. Some of that content was absorbed into another indicator, but when it's crossed out like that, that means that that does not align. So that gives us some indicators of, hey, if I had a formative assessment that I used in my classroom that focused on the connotative meanings of words and phrases, I might need to consider how that applies in the 2023 standards, because there's a different type of alignment there. You just need to pay attention to when things are crossed out. Now, when the majority of an indicator is crossed out, then that means that there is slight to minimal alignment between 2015 and 2023. So just consider that as you read through the crosswalk as well. All right, so let's do a little CSI again. Take a look at the content presented in this document. It's being dropped in the chat for you. And then think about support. How does this document support the shift to the new standards? And then finally, what ideas do you have for using this document in your instructional planning? Go ahead and take just about 3 minutes to take a look at the crosswalk and consider the CSI. Very good, Cameron. Yes, that comparison. Now, what do we notice about the comparison with our K through 2 content? Any of my early childhood friends in here, give me a explanation of that comparison. Quite a few, right? In our K through 2 Foundations of Literacy, a lot of new content. Now, C.S. Johns, I love your statement here in the chat. You say it's easy to spot where changes come into play. One goal for our team for next semester is to present the top 10 shifts in each grade band. And the way that we kind of developed that professional learning that's going to be coming to you in the spring is we took a look at this crosswalk document and we spotted where the biggest changes in each grade band came into play. And that's how we kind of documented, oh, that's the big shift. That's a great big shift. And that's where we kind of built the framework for that presentation. So exactly, you can do that in your vertical teams, right? Or in your PLCs. I'm so glad some of y'all are already using that. This year is the perfect year to be using the crosswalk document. Especially Josie in high school. I love that you're using it there. Yes. Lori, a lot. Yes, in kindergarten. Big shifts, especially in Foundation 3.8. Now, one statement that I love in the crosswalk is there is not a 2015 indicator that this aligns to. Right? That's the big flashing red sign for us to say, oh, what do I need to do? How do I need to plan for that implementation? If this indicator, the 2023 indicator, is new content, what do I need to do to prepare for that? Yeah, a great thing to consider as you explore the crosswalk. Very nice. Okay, so let's go over our findings. So our finding is that the content are the 2023 to 2015 standards. It's the comparison document of those. This is a support tool that gives us a crosswalk between those standards and helps us to see what is the same and what is different from 2015 to 2023. Some ideas for using this document would be to use at your grade level, maybe to revise resources that you already use, different formative assessments you may be already using, unit planning, revising some of that to look for alignment to the new standards, or maybe using a crosswalk in vertical teams to explore the differences and shifts. Now, where to access this crosswalk document, you can access this on the ELA Instructional Resources page on the SCDE website. Now, one piece of feedback and question that we have gotten about the crosswalk document is, are there other versions or iterations of this crosswalk document? And no, we have only produced this one version of the crosswalk document that shows the English 4 to kindergarten progression. We did not create any other versions of that document. And at this time, we don't have any intentions to do so. However, if you would like to use our document and create a crosswalk that only includes the grade level or grade band that you support, you're welcome to do so, but we don't have intention to do that at this time. But all right, let's move on. So now it's time for us to enter a time of clarity and closure. You've been drinking from the fire hydrant, right? I've been blasting you with information for the past 49 minutes about the 4 iterations of the ELA standards. So of course, it's time for a pop quiz, right? Let's take a look at this final section of our time together today. It's called, Which One Do You Choose? You're going to be presented with 4 scenarios. And in the chat, I'd like for you to respond on which iteration of the ELA standards document you would use in this situation. So here's scenario number 1. You are looking at a common formative assessment that your grade level uses every year for your unit assessment. You want to see if it aligns to the 2023 ELA standards. What iteration could you use? All right. I see a lot of people are choosing the crosswalk or iteration number 4. Why would the crosswalk be a great tool to use?
Hello?
Yes, Christine.
I would say it's a good tool to use because since you've been using it in the past years, you have to make sure it aligns to the current standards.
Yes, Christine, you're exactly right. So I know if I'm assessing RL 2.1, then the alignment to the 2023 indicator needs to match, right? And so I can look at that from my crosswalk document. Comparing. Yes, very good. Thank you, Christine. All right, scenario number 2. Here we go. You are planning with your entire middle school ELA department, and you want to know when clauses are taught in grammar. Which iteration might you use? Clauses. Awesome. Yes. Ooh, I see somebody throwing some other support docs in there. I like that. So yes, the vertical articulation or even the vertical articulation with indicator insight 2 or 3 would be a great iteration to use in this situation because we're looking, we want to identify where are clauses and what grade are they taught in. So I would pull up that vertical articulation. I would go down to communications strand, and then I would find 4.1, right? Because that's where our grammar expectations live. And then I could find where are clauses. However, I did see a couple people drop into the chat that you could also take a look at another support document that supports grammar. The Grammar and Conventions Matrix. I love that y'all mentioned that. Very good. Yes, that's another great instructional resource located on the SCDE page that does give some insight into the grammar expectations. We got an advanced group here today. All right, scenario number 3. You're talking with the other teacher at your school that teaches English 2, and you're developing your long-range plans. What iteration do you think might be helpful for developing those long-range plans for English 2? Very good. I see iteration number 1, that grade level iteration. Yes, that's a great tool, especially because of those grade level entering statements that offer text types for suggestions of what kind of text might be taught at that grade level, or the different modes of writing that might be considered for that grade level. So the grade level iteration is a great tool to use in that situation or scenario. Awesome. All right,
May I
scenario
ask
number
a
4.
question?
Oh, yes, Janice.
Just for clarification, the entering statements on that grade level iteration, when teachers read those, that is what is expected entering that grade or leaving that grade?
Leaving that grade.
Okay.
Yes. And they're not in any way tied to assessment, or they're not to confine teachers at all. So you absolutely can explore other text types or other modes of writing, but that is just a good expectation for you to consider when planning for that grade level.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, scenario 4. You are interested in vertical planning for ELA curriculum, but you're concerned about how perspective leads to irony. What iteration do you use? Oh, very nice. I cannot trick y'all today. My goodness. Iteration number 3. You're right, because iteration number 3 includes what? Vertical articulation with those indicator insights. Oh, y'all, I'm telling you, I got a back channel chat going with our other associates that are here with us today, and we're all like, this group is on it. Y'all are the bluebirds for sure. The vertical articulation with those indicator insights, because that provides insight into how concepts either develop over time or progress into concepts in later grades. So excellent job. Now, also the glossary, Marianne. Oh, that's Casey and Tabitha. That's their labor of love, and their prized possession is that glossary. Yes, the glossary definitely provides insight into that too, which can also be found on our instructional resources page. So glad you mentioned that. Now, we know that we have provided you information about these iterations this morning, but you all are the experts in the field. You are the ones who are using these documents day in and day out. So if any of you have used any of the iterations and you feel comfortable, unmute and share how you have used them.
I have been working on a committee that is currently using the crosswalk to take a look at our district's common assessments to ensure that they are still going to fall in line at the 4th and 5th grade level.
Janice, that is such a great task, especially in this year, to go ahead and work on. So that now you're ready for next year when full implementation happens. Bianca, talk to us. Tell us how you.
So I have been probably far too excited about all these documents. So I've been using them this year, just to help plan some content, but also at the beginning of the year for our school, we focused on narrowing down essential standards. So the docs that we created kind of outline all the things that we want to do to hit those essential standards. The old standards are in there, but then I went ahead and put the new standards in there as well, so we can kind of see what we're working on this year and then what we're going to transition to for next year, so that, you know, we already have that done, so we could jump in next year like automatically kind of knowing what we're going to be doing. So we kind of chose that based on what we have now and then what's coming up. But personally, I mean, I've been using them for all of my choice boards and writing and things like that, just because there's so much good stuff there, and there is a good amount that crosses over. So I've used the crosswalk document a good bit.
Bianca, I love that you use the documents to figure out what you needed to target. So like with the crosswalk, the things that are the biggest shifts, those are the ones we want to focus on most, right? Because that's going to be the newest learning for our teachers, but also our students. Oh, I love that. Huge, huge impact. Anyone else share how you've used any of these iterations so far? I'm so glad you're getting these in front of teachers as well. That's awesome. So a lot of times with these webinars, our attendees come from a pool of people who know all this information. And a lot of this information may be things that you already knew, right? But was this presented to you in a way that you could turn around and reuse this slide deck and this information to support the audiences that you serve? So I hope so. I hope that you were able to hear some things or see some things this morning that you feel like could impact the audiences that you support. So it, maybe there was some new information that you heard this morning. I hope so. But if not, that's okay too. Maybe you already knew all this information. You just need to hear it again, right? But next, or now, what does this information have you thinking about? After you've seen this, is there your next step? What could you do next in applying the learning that took place today? Could you reuse this slide deck with an audience that you support? Could you tweak any of this information in order to share it, maybe with GT or MLs, support teachers that support those audiences? Could you share it with any of your teachers that support reading and writing in their classrooms, right? Hopefully you'll find ways to find this useful. But for the sake of time, we got to keep moving, guys. So let's end today with our feedback survey. My name is Mandy Hawker, and this was the 4 iterations of the ELA standards. In the chat, we have dropped the link to our feedback survey. It's also on the bottom of your note catcher, and the QR code is here as well. The ELA standards team for the Office of Assessment and Standards is constantly looking for ways to improve our presentations and practice. So please give us feedback this morning. Give me feedback to know how we can tweak this presentation or improve our offerings for you, just to better meet the needs of the state of South Carolina. I thank you for joining us today for this hour and spending time with me at our last webinar of 2023. You are our final audience for webinars, so we thank you for being here today. We will listen and linger for a while if you have any questions or just want to give us any other feedback, but we are so thankful for your partnership and how you carry this information to the audiences that you support. There's no way we could reach South Carolina without you, so thank you for being here today. Again, give us some feedback in that feedback survey and let us know how you felt this presentation was relevant and actionable. So anyway, we just thank you so much for today. And again, we'll listen and linger if you have any questions or comments.